I know we're on a bunch of different channels here on Facebook and TikTok and on Instagram.
Yep.
I am Morgan Given. I'm a divorce attorney in Chicagoland. And Farrah is an amazing immigration attorney. Farrah, can you tell us where you practice?
Okay. So my name is QAZI. I am an immigration attorney for more than 20 years. I practice all over the country because the nature of it is that it's federal. So that's kind of a cool thing that that I can do. But my physical office is in Batavia, and I have clients from all over Chicagoland and all over the country. So we do a lot of things by Zoom and video and fun things like this. And also, Morgan, I think you're unmuted on the other side, so they won't be able to hear you on Facebook or YouTube.
Okay. Let me.
Hopefully there's not too much feedback here.
Yeah, feedback. Okay, so maybe it's muted for that.
Okay.
Eventually, we will get this right. So, all right, to all of you who are joining, thank you so much. We are talking about immigration and family law, which is maybe not as exciting to other people, but for us, it's tremendously exciting. So, there's a real connection between them, and a lot of times people don't realize how much they marry each other, and how many times we'll get questions inside, particularly about family law, vice versa. And so one of the reasons why we decided to do this was because we thought, what better way than for you not to just get one or two attorneys who could answer whatever questions that you have, and also tell you everything, all your burning questions about both family law and immigration, and how you can kind of navigate both them if you have those type of cases.
I get so many immigration questions from my divorce clients. I'm so excited to ask you them. What do you think is the biggest divorce question you got from immigrant people?
So one of the things, and this is actually a good segue, because one of the things that I specialize in is I work with undocumented population, but I particularly work with people who are survivors, not victims, survivors of domestic violence or trafficking, for example. And many times, one of the biggest methods of role or shame or kind of a coercion that occurs in a domestic violence situation is when they are an immigrant, is that they also believe or think that they might be dependent on their spouse for their immigration status, and because of that, very, very reluctant to take any sort of action, or to separate, or to divorce, or even to contact the police, because they're so scared that they're going to end up being deported and having to leave the country. So this is one of the reasons why family law and immigration, it's such a tremendously important symbiotic relationship, because we need to understand, both of us, in order to advocate for clients, we need to understand both areas. So the number one question that I get from people is, if I divorce my spouse, am I going to get deported? If I separate from my spouse or divorce from them, will I lose my children because I don't have immigration status? What are the ramifications of divorce on my pending immigration application? And those are probably like the biggest hurdles that my clients are going through. And also, so for years, sometimes they are being fed this like falsehood that they can't own, they can't do anything on their own. They're completely dependent on this spouse, because this spouse is the one who has citizenship or residency, and so they have to just deal with whatever abuse coming their way because of that. And so one of the things that I do in my firm, and we do at our firm, is really give them that advocate, that ability to be like, no, you've actually other options available to you. And the answer to those questions is, your divorce is not necessarily going to cause deportation. It's not going to cause your case to get denied. There are so many different ways that we can help you navigate that.
Right. And that's totally the answer. Is there still feedback? I'm trying something new to do my volume lower, or is that still causing problems audio-wise?
No, okay.
Okay, good. Okay, then hopefully we'll be able to do this on both.
Yeah.
Love that answer, Farrah. I hear the fear in my clients' voices all the time too. And the reality is, from the divorce perspective, like the divorce court really does not get involved in immigration status. They really don't care that much. Honestly, they're there tasked to make the best interest of the child, to make sure that the kids are protected, that they are put with a parent and the parenting time schedule that makes sense for the children. They're not, going to get involved in immigration issues. That said, every single divorce client I have that is going through some type of immigration related issue, I tell them, you need to talk to an immigration attorney. You need to contact someone like Farrah, and the attorneys can work together and give you a lot of peace of mind too, that this is going to be handled safely. But truly, in my experience, and I practice in Illinois, again in Chicagoland, the divorce court is not looking to impact anyone's immigration status. That is just not their role.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times there's definitely confusion about that. There's the different court processes, because people just think, okay, it's just like one court and everything is happening in this one court. But immigration court is separate from divorce court, and criminal court is separate from all of those, and civil court is different from all of the rest of them. So there's different departments, right? And you're absolutely right. Like to this day, I have not seen anybody in divorce court particularly interested in immigration status, one,
Never.
or in deporting somebody.
In all my years, I've been practicing for 12, almost 13 years. I've never seen it be an issue.
No.
In that way.
And I think like I always tell my this and it's always like this like watershed moment, honestly, because I tell them, I was like, that was a lie to get you to keep you under control. And they're like, what do you mean? Because they assume that their citizen or their residents knows about the laws here in this country and was telling them, despite the fact that they might be abused, or they might have, was telling them accurate information about that, right? And that is not the case. One of the things that are used particularly in any sort of abusive relationship is lies, manipulation, exploitation, a twisting of facts, gaslighting, all of those things. And so I see that quite a bit with immigration because, for example, if you send out a pending application based on, your spouse's applicant, like let's say your spouse is a citizen or a resident, and then you are here and on this purpose that you're going to get married and you're going to get your green card based on that. And then you find out that, okay, whatever, there's cheating going on, or there's an abusive situation, or something has just drastically changed in your marriage. Now, a typical immigration case, at least 3 years. And those are like the best ones, right? 3 years to complete. That's three of you putting up with stuff that you shouldn't have to because you're too scared, or because you're telling you that you cannot leave, otherwise you'll get deported. And the truth of the matter is that if you have a pending application like that, there are actual exceptions within the statute for abuse, for fraud, for misrepresentation, like based on, your petitioner or something of that nature. And there's also completely new applications that you can apply for. And we're going to talk about that. Like, for example, one is called VAWA, specifically people who are in toxic marriages and abused relationships and want to just, fix them without the help of their partner.
Could VAWA even apply when your partner is telling you these things that are just not true? Like, you're not allowed to go to the court, or you're not permitted to get custody of our kids. You have to stay married to me. Would that possibly constitute abuse?
Yes. So that's a really, really good question too. Because a lot of times people think abuse is just physical, and I don't want to say just like as if I'm negating that, but that's not the case. Actually, in 99.9% of these cases, it starts off psychologically, right? It starts off emotionally. There's a whole manipulation that occurs verbally first. That's still considered abuse. And many times I'll have clients and they'll come to me and it's heartbreaking. So they're like, well, he or she, well, they didn't actually hit me. So I guess this doesn't qualify. The definition of abuse is not that somebody has to hit you. The definition of abuse is somebody who is taking advantage of your situation, who's making you feel inferior, or the lesser than in some way, right? And if there's any part of you where you're kind of like, this doesn't seem right, then you should ask an attorney who's, who has experience in that, to be like, okay, is this, and one of the things that we see quite a bit, sometimes like it'll be on the surface, more or less whatever, a regular relationship, except that the spouse regularly is telling them, if you don't do this, I'm not going to apply for you. If you go to me, then I will send your application in. They're kind of like holding that application over the person.
Right.
Or you allow me to take the kids out of the country, and then I'll file your application. You allow my mother to live with us, and then I'll file your application. Whatever it might be. So on the surface, it might not seem like it's, but it isn't, because they've taken a position of power and control, and they're using that to kind of keep you down.
I kind of love, though, that it can be flipped on its head, where these tactics that are used to dominate someone or control someone are actually the things that you can use to get yourself into a position you want to be in, and show that you can maintain your status and get divorced and get help. Yeah.
A really empowering tool. And that's what people don't understand about ballot. It's a lot of negative connotations to it, but it really is meant to prepare yourself, to give you autonomy, give you independence, and really give you like that little push that you need so that you can actually finally speak up for yourself, right? And that's why I refuse, I'm very careful when I speak about being abused or being a victim, because I don't see people like that. I feel, you've survived something, and now you just need a little bit of help to get to the next level. And if there is a tool that's available, such as FARRAH, then you should use that without feeling guilty or ashamed for it, or feeling like this is like you did that was illegal. It's a legal solution available to you.
Right. So well put. I've got another question, kind of for a different situation. This is something that I get a lot, where I have a client who, they were the U.S. citizen, and their spouse they brought in on a spousal visa. And I have a rough understanding that there is some support obligations that you are agreeing to, when you bring someone in. And at the federal level, I understand that there could be this requirement that the U.S. citizen spouse has to continue to support their spouse who immigrated. This is not done in divorce court. This is very different from child support or maintenance or alimony. What have you seen? What can I tell my clients when they ask about this? Do they have an obligation to continue paying money to their spouse if they get divorced?
So it's interesting. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I probably the first time that I was consulted a divorce attorney, and he wanted me to actually present an expert opinion in the divorce proceeding. And I was really kind of blown away by it, but it was because they were trying to fight this idea of affidavit of support. So what you're talking about is, generally speaking, in family-based petitions, where you have a typical stable marriage, right? But your spouse has decided that they're going to, we're not talking about power, we're not talking about domestic abuse. This is a regular stable marriage where everything seems okay. Your spouse has now agreed to apply for you. And what they do is they will also submit an affidavit of support. That affidavit of support is critical to the application because it shows immigration that the applicant will not be a burden on the government, and that you have somebody who's going to support you financially until you can work. And
right, like they won't go on benefits, they won't take state. Right.
You're not gonna further burden the state in any. So what happens is, usually we'll ask the petitioner, so the petitioner is the spouse, the citizen spouse, will ask 3 years of tax document, letter, all of their kind of like history of their salary and things like that, to show that they have enough with their spouse. So what happens is, in a case of divorce, some attorneys will be able to use say, hey, he or she was willing to support her at that time of immigration, and also provided all these his or her taxes. And because of that, we are asking for, more money or more
Yes.
or rewriting, previous agreement or whatever that way. And I have actually seen that be successful. So it was, kind of the first time that I saw that, I was a little bit blown away. I don't think that people realize the implications that when you are providing affidavit of support, it could come back to you in some proceeding.
And
So
I've seen it be successful too, but I've also seen judges say that's immigration matter. That's different
it's
from
like
what we're
both,
doing.
right? So it's really interesting because I've seen that too. I've seen judges be like, no, here, this was an immigration different matter. We're not going to talk about it. But I've seen the flip side too. So now I'm one of the things that we, for example, if we have a situation like that, we have a married couple. I always advise the citizen or the resident's spouse that they should have another attorney look over their affidavit of support if they think that might potentially be an issue, almost like treat it like almost like a prenup kind of a thing,
Right.
and have somebody else review it just to be sure, because I wouldn't be able to present them in those if that was to ever happen. So I give that caveat to them, and then I also tell them the same thing, that just be aware that whatever you're putting into it becomes a record, and it can be pulled up, for anything in the future. And for sure, you by that same token, make sure that everything that you say is honest and true and accurate. Don't think that you can dump numbers. Don't say that you're earning like $1 million and then find out that you're not earning that amount. There's so many different areas. It will become a record. So sometimes people just kind of like fill out an immigration form and they don't think about it. It's a legal document.
Right. It's going to exist forever.
And it's still with you forever. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know you had a really interesting question about annulment. What have your clients asked you about annulment or, declaring a marriage invalid when it comes to immigration?
Okay, I've had a couple of scenarios. I have had, which, they're kind of interesting, but I've had more than once clients who have either overlapped in their marriages. Like they have gotten married. Let's say that they got married in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got in the States, and they kind of forgot to divorce the person in Mexico, and so now a bigamy situation, right? And now they want to apply for the person that's here in the United States. So what sometimes is either A, how can they divorce somebody outside the country, or B, can they annul the marriage and remarry their spouse so that there's no overlap.
Yeah. So of course, laws vary state by state. I practice in Illinois. Every state has some version of what's a permissible annulment. And the biggest one is probably the one you mentioned, bigamy, where someone was already married. If someone was already married when they married you, you can definitely have your marriage declared invalid here in Illinois by proving that. But there are other bases for annulment too, but they're very specific. So you have to make sure that you qualify for it. One of them is if you lack the capacity to consent to the marriage because you weren't of the legal age, which in Illinois is 18, unless you have parental consent, which needs to be memorialized. Or if you were intoxicated, if you can prove that you were very drunk or otherwise intoxicated and didn't know that you were consenting to marriage, that could be one. Also, if someone forced you to marry them, if it was done under duress and you can prove that. Or via fraud, although usually fraud is sort of the reverse situation where sometimes I'll have clients who tell me, I want to divorce my spouse because they simply wanted a green card and they never had the intention of living with me. That's difficult to prove at times, but it can be done sometimes, and that could be basis for annulment. Also, if they're related, every state has different laws about what types of relations can marry. Obviously, you can't marry a sibling, but in some states, you can marry your cousin. In Illinois, you cannot marry a first cousin. So that is a basis for an invalidity as well. The other ones are, again, sort of a unique one: incapacity to or inability to consummate the marriage. That's a basis for annulment, but that really requires like a medical finding that there was an inability to consummate. So you have to fit in one of those specific categories. It's not, oh, I didn't want to get married, now I regret it. That would have to be a divorce. But if you fit one of these specific bases for an annulment or a declaration of invalidity, you can pursue that, and it's like the marriage never took place. There's no child support, or, well, that's not true. There would be child support for a child born of the marriage, but there'd be no spousal support. There'd be no division of property. And legally speaking, probably for your immigration case, it's like the marriage didn't happen.
Right. And so, in some cases, like I said, it's necessary, right? And again, you deal with a lot of domestic abuse. So there is fraud. There are a lot of things that are happening kind of without the person's consent. In particular, one case where and this hinges on a long question as well, but this one went. She came from, and she deliberately, came in basically to get married. And when she came here, she realized that everything was basically like a lie. She had met him a couple of times. She had never actually, been with him, in the same country, essentially. And so he to like a clerk that she thought was a clerk. But it turned out that it was just some guy posing, and did marriage ceremony for her. She continued to live with him for years and went through in animal abuse. Had a child with him, and then he just left her, and she went to try to get social support. To get a divorce, and found out that she had never actually.
Yeah, because the marriage certificate was a sham. Yeah,
it was a sham.
I've seen that before too, and there's a lot of case law actually that deals with that exact issue. First of all, I want to point out that in some states there's a concept of common law marriage, where if you live together and kind of hold yourself out as husband and wife, you will be legally afforded a lot of the same rights, or all of the same rights in some cases. We don't have that in Illinois, but there is a similar provision called the putative spouse doctrine, where if you reasonably believed that you were married because, for example, your spouse lied to you and like hired someone to pretend to be a priest, or made a fake marriage certificate, you may qualify as a putative spouse and get all the same benefits, maintenance, division of property, or many of these that you would get if you were married. So I've seen that exact set of facts kind of be resolved with the putative spouse issue. And also, sometimes there are just legal technicalities about a marriage certificate that maybe it just wasn't filed correctly. It was like given to the wrong department, or they didn't, check the right box. Those also, may not be, you can still be married. The court has found in cases where, both people thought they did everything right, but they just messed up one little legality. We'll consider that a real marriage. But for the situation you're describing, where there was real like nefarious fraud, you might be a putative spouse or a common law spouse in another area.
So that's actually a lot of argument. We are the putative spouse, and we won. She got everything.
That's awesome.
Did everything like that. I didn't handle the divorce on the immigration side because in the immigration side it was also a problem, because she actually qualified for VAWA, but in order for VAWA, you know that you were married. And the problem because she wasn't actually married, so we had to go through the whole argument that we normally would. Right. So she actually ended up winning on both sides, family law and immigration. But the reason why I mention this in particular is because a lot of times I've gone to several other attorneys, and she had spoken to all of her family members and just a lot of it. There's nothing you can do. You're here in Illinois. There's no common law marriage. There's nothing you can, you're
wrong. People get bad advice, especially, it's really scary that attorneys were giving her that advice, but certainly if you just ask your friends or go online, you may think, there's nothing I can do. you should call an attorney and talk to someone.
And also, don't just call one attorney, I guess, because I'm obviously, what I tell people all the time about this is that attorneys are like that, right? Like we all have our own little like specialties and our own like things that we love to do. Like for me, the more complicated, the more excited I am. like I love doing like thinking outside of the box. I love coming up with a creative solution. I hearing no. So if I that case, I was like, no, we are gonna find a way. Like there has got to be something here. Every single person is different, and so consult with attorneys. They're great attorneys, but maybe not the right fit for you. So then you should persevere, and you should believe in yourself enough to just keep asking, and especially if you think that something's wrong, like, hey, this isn't exactly what I deserve, then, keep asking and try to find that right fit for yourself, because there are people and there are ways, like you just explained it so beautifully. Like immediately you started thinking, okay, putative spouse, common law, how do we do this? What do we, how do we figure this problem out?
And you can tell when you're interviewing the lawyer if they've handled that situation before. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, I know what to do.
Sometimes we haven't handled it, but we're willing to do it. Like we're like, okay, give me what I need to do. I'll do the research and everything so I can get it done. Right. So, but yeah, I would say that would be one piece of advice that I would give. You keep on asking and keep checking, and don't ask your friends and like your barber and because they might mean well, but they don't know. And you want to talk to a person who's actually had experience with this and who can kind of do the critical thinking on your behalf. I think if anything else, I think the message is that really, even if a case seems impossible, it might not necessarily be impossible. And so I would not listen to like the naysayers in your life. Sometimes the naysayers are your loved ones, right? Like they're your family and friends, but they're trying to protect you, or they think they're like helping you out. It doesn't necessarily translate well for your legal case, right? So I will say one thing about one of the questions we had that we were talking about was about kids. Particular for my client, if they are thinking of getting separated or divorced and they have not done this yet, there is a fear that the family court judge will not give them custody of their child.
And yeah, as we said at the top here, for anyone who's new to the live, the family law court is not looking at immigration status. They simply don't. They are looking at the care that you've provided to your children and the best interest factors, which are laid out in the law. And that doesn't include immigration status. And I've truly never seen a court in the divorce world consider that as one of the factors for where the children should go. And certainly seen many cases and represented many clients who were not, legal U.S. citizens or were somewhere on the timeline of becoming one, who were awarded primary parenting time or legal custody, of the children.
So what is it they do look at if they're trying to think about determining custody?
Yeah, well, they look at, historically what has been the case, especially in the last 24 months. What did each parent do in terms of caregiving? Who has been the parent who's primarily done the day-to-day things, bathing the kids, feeding the kids, taking them to school? They're also looking to see, who is the parent who was, scheduling the doctor's appointments, taking the kids to activities and kind of doing those logistics. One of the things I think that is a big one, though, that a lot of people don't know about and is overlooked is they want to see who is the parent who's going to facilitate a relationship with the other parent. So especially when you have a parent who is trying to badmouth one parent to the kids or stop them from being around them, the courts don't like to see that. They want to see a parent who is going to, help the kids to have a good relationship with the other parent, even when they're living primarily with them. But there are many factors, the court looks at more than 12, and then there's a catch-all factor for things that are not listed. But I think those are really the biggest ones. They do look at the child's preferences too. The kids don't have the final say, but as a child gets older and more mature, that preference is going to weigh in more. And they also look at domestic violence. And if there's a history of domestic violence, that is obviously a very relevant and serious factor that the court's going to consider, and that may even have the court create some type of restriction on parenting time where someone has only suspended visits or supervised visits rather, or no overnights or shorter visits instead of a longer chunk of time.
So from all of those, hearing anything about legal?
No, yeah, right. You honed in on it. It is truly not, the domestic relations judges, they love to say like, we don't handle immigration here. That's not our purview.
Yeah. And I think, and that's this part makes me sad when I hear that from clients, because I'm like, that's so not. And yet, of course, they wouldn't know that. They're just being told that by their abuser. Right. And of course, any parent would be like, "Oh my God, I don't want to lose my children." And so they're just like sacrificing their own happiness and their own safety because they think that they're going to lose their kids. And so, if there's a message that we can send out, it would be, please do not be scared. Don't listen to your abuser in that regard, or anyone in that regard. And really take the initiative to, if you're in a scary situation or a situation that doesn't serve you, don't believe that you're going to lose your children or livelihood or lose your home or get deported just because you have now taken the initiative to try to fix your future. Right?
That's so true.
Yeah. So.
Well, maybe we should call it there. I think we handled a lot. Is there any last burning question you think we should tackle, Farrah?
I think we did everything. I mean, hopefully people, usually what happens is people start like afterwards, so we'll find out what other, have to say, but hopefully this is helpful to everyone, and we'll do this again. So in case we have more burning questions, we can tackle them together.
Great. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you for joining me and answering all this stuff. I'm sure I'll get more too, and we'll reconvene another time.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, Farrah.
Bye.